6 Massachusetts middle school students are facing criminal charges for their alleged role in a racist bullying incident that included threats and a mock slave auction. The investigation revealed that several 8th grade students from Southwick Regional School were on Snapchat making hateful and racist comments, including notions of violence towards people of color, racial slurs, derogatory pictures and videos, plus a mock slave auction directed at 2 juveniles known to them. The juveniles we charged with threatening to commit a crime, 2 with interference with civil rights, and 1 with witness interference. Because the cases will be prosecuted in juvenile court, many details about the suspects and the allegations cannot be publicized. I must say, Michael, listen, I keep telling people the beauty of social media, folk gonna tell them themselves.
Yeah, people will tell on themselves. People will brag about it. People will distribute the information, and then go to school and talk about what they put on social media. So it's good that these 6 juveniles, these teens, were caught and charged with racial bullying. But the question that I would ask, and I've seen numerous stories like this over the past few years, the question I would ask is, 1, what made them think that this was permissible? What made them think that this was acceptable behavior, number 1? And 2, where did they learn this? What was their rearing? I'm not blaming it on their parents, but I'm just wondering, how were they brought up? OK, how were they reared? So and lastly, these people, these children these youth who were targeted, they will probably need some type of counseling also. OK, so I'm glad this is caught. But this is one of the reasons why the history of African Americans has to be taught in every school across the country, because largely the way you treat people is based upon what you've been taught and what you read about them. So I'm glad this has been exposed.
Listen, this is real all across this country, Niambi, and we see it whether we're talking about elementary school, junior high, high school, college. It don't matter.
Yeah, and to Michael's point, I mean, this notion that this generation is somehow more progressive on race than previous generations, I think we have to throw it out the window, because what people forget is that people who have these kinds of perspectives went on to have children, and their children have children. So these young people ideas, I don't think, came out in a vacuum, and I agree with Michael. I'm not blaming the parents, but I think this is a larger commentary about our country. And young people are not exempt from these attitudes and these ideas that we think belong to yesteryear or to a previous generation. They are just as much susceptible to these kind of notions of an anti-Blackness, and the willingness to now put this on the internet, I think, is probably the difference that we've seen. And not only to put it on the internet, but to torture their colleagues virtually, as well as potentially in person, I think is also just a different moment, or speaks to the different moment that we're in with the prevalence of social media and the ways that the internet and these different platforms can be used to further harm our children.
Absolutely. Matt?
Well, I tell people all the time who I represent, be very careful what you put on social media. I mean, it's good that these teens were caught before they did something. And I do think that there is a conversation we can have about not only the First Amendment, but about where a threat truly begins and where poor decision making and poor commentary, ends. I'm not in any way saying these kids should be defended for what they said. But I will tell you, this does kind of concern me, because there are a lot of young Black kids who could put something in a Snapchat that they don't think is as problematic. They should have known here, obviously, and they end up getting prosecuted or having issues. And I've seen that happen a lot of times in the school context. So I say that to say what parents should take from this is be very, very careful and very, instructive with your children about what they put into the online space. These kids here deserved it, it sounds like. But there are kids who have been prosecuted and who have gotten caught up on things that they did not think were as serious as what they put. So with my 13-year-old, I'm very hard on him about what he texts and what he puts anywhere into the public space, because this can obviously bring you criminal responsibility for it. And I think a lot of our kids don't recognize sometimes the things that they say can be taken as threats. However, here in this circumstance, it sounds like they have pretty good evidence that these kids were actually planning to do something. And I'm glad they caught them before they did it, because this is actually a huge issue with young people these days. A lot of times they're making threats to schools and to other kids on Instagram and other social media platforms. And we have to make sure we're vigilant to protect our kids and make sure that, we see something like this and we stop it before it actually becomes physically harmful.
Yeah, and people just, have to understand that some people go, well, these just kids being kids, not when you're now dealing with school shootings. That you just can't excuse it that way.
I think a lot of us manage to be just kids and never do stuff like this to people on the internet or otherwise. So I don't think that that's going to hold. Kids get into lots of things, but I don't think this is in the realm of what we should normalize as young people's behavior. I think many of us have went through our whole lives and never done things like this to anyone.
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
Yeah, and when you bring social media into it, 20, 30, 40 years ago, it was totally different. But when you bring social media into it, it operates 24 hours a day. If you were bullied at school, you could go home. You were pretty safe. But here they can put things on social media and other people in your school see it. So when you go back to school the next day, you're antagonized. They can show the videos, spread the videos around from cell phone to cell phone, et cetera. It's totally different today. So you have to take a different approach to how you combat this.